Hey everyone, welcome to the another episode of Mind Over Matter. I'm your host Sushmitha, and today we have an incredible guest who is going to blow your mind. Please welcome Michael Kurkowski. Michael is a strength and mindness coach with nearly 15 years of experience, the owner of Breakthrough Secrets and the host of the Strength Connection podcast. He is here to share his journey and wisdom on how to harmonize physical, mental, and spiritual strength practices to live fullest and the most joyful life. Michael, thank you for joining us today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sushmitha. It's very nice to be here. Appreciate it.
To start with, Michael, what inspired you to become a strength and mindness coach?
So we'll bring it all the way back. So I was always into athletics growing up. I really enjoyed the physical side of training. And what's interesting is, and I've heard about this with a lot of other coaches as well, I always seem to enjoy practice early on, even more than like games. I played baseball and basketball, I played tennis, but early on, I knew that the training and practice side of it was where you go to get better. The games were always fun, they were always enjoyable, but there was something about like going into practice, like I always felt like that was where you go to get better. So I kind of found that early on, like I always enjoyed the aspects of being on a team. I always knew that I wanted to do something in my life where I worked with people. I wasn't a thing person. I wasn't into kind of technology and gadgets. I was always looking at more, things like medicine or law. And then in my early 20s, after, a few different pursuits of wanting to play professional baseball and trying to figure out what I wanted to do, a good friend of mine that I worked with in a restaurant was a personal trainer. And I was at the moment kind of in my life where I was looking to get back in shape. I kind of let myself go for a couple years and asked him if I could, come in and just chat about, the work that he did and, maybe, do a few sessions. And that's when he introduced me into the system of functional movement. So what Gray Cook and Lee Burton and Brett Jones created was more of like the assessment process of how the body works. Now, what was cool about that for me was beforehand, I always looked at working out on the vanity metrics, like doing kind of bodybuilding type workouts, doing a leg day, doing an arm day, trying to get as, big and toned as possible. But this was the first time that I really saw like an athletic based training program that focused more on the whole body. And what was another big piece of that was going back when I was 14 years old, I had a hip injury. My femur slipped out of my growth plate, which I had to go in and have emergency surgery with. And that took me off of my feet for almost a year and a half. And after that, got back into kind of movement and training. But I didn't realize is that just from going through that process at an early age, I developed a lot of compensations in my own movement patterns. And this was the first time when I went in and met with my friend, he put me through a whole assessment process and showed that I had a lot of asymmetries and compensations in my movement. I didn't even realize it until he pointed it out. And then we went to correct them. So I got back into a better balance of my body and I felt incredible. And what I realized is I didn't even realize I didn't feel that good until we corrected it. And then I felt amazing. And so that was one of my first really introductions into the coaching world when I was more curious about how does this all work. And then my friend who was my trainer ended up being the manager of that club that I was at. Asked me if I ever thought about, getting into personal training. He's like, you seem like you would be good at it. I was like, well, how does this all work? Told me about it. And from there, I was like, well, might as well just give it a shot, and got my certification, got a job with him, and then built a client book very quickly. Ended up actually managing that club for 10 years after that, and then moved on into some new ventures afterwards. But yeah, that was kind of the beginning journey is always wanted to work with people. And then when I got into more of the total body approach, realizing that there was another layer and a depth to what you can do as a coach to work with people. And that's what I wanted to pursue.
That's inspiring. And how do you define strength in the context of physical, mental, and spiritual practices?
It's a great question. And I think, everybody's going to have a little bit different definition of strength, but I think based on their own experience and what they're aiming for in their life. how I view strength is from resilience and just overall consistency of wanting to be better every day. So there's a Japanese term called Kaizen, and the Kaizen path is really a best way to describe it as a path of mastery, which is looking to aim to get a little bit better each day. So that's how I look at strength as far as working with my clients and working with my own pursuits in life, is just trying to get a little bit better and not just going into it for just the surface level stuff, actually get deeper into the practices of, connecting strength in all different areas of your life. So anytime I jump on a podcast, I always brought back to this quote that has inspired me a lot in my life from the musician Beethoven. And it was, do not just practice your art, but force your way into its secrets. For that and knowledge will raise men to the divine. So if you break that quote down, it's really cool. So look at it from the guy who said it, Beethoven, one of the greatest musicians that we know of in our life. And the first piece of that quote, when he said, do not just practice your art, but force your way into its secrets. Well, I said, if you take out the word art and you just insert the word life, that's really how we should be approaching life. And if you're going to go deep into that, then your physical pursuits don't just affect your physical pursuits. It affects your mental pursuits and your spiritual pursuits, the relationships that you have with your family, with your career, with yourself. So how I look at strength and why I name my podcast The Strength Connection is, I think, to really be in our greatest self and the best self that we can be, it's not just working on one versus the other. It's a combination of all the different areas of strength that are in our lives and figuring out how to harmonize those at all different points of our life. Sometimes maybe you're going to work a little bit more on the physical side, sometimes a little bit more on the mental, maybe sometimes a little bit more on the spiritual or the emotional. But if you look at it from all the different pillars that make this up, and you work on each one of them individually, then they all eventually come together. And that's where I think you're most joyful, you're really living fully in your purpose. And that's where also when the hard days come, when you don't want to do the things that you need to do, it's a lot easier to get those things done because you've aligned your goals with a higher purpose, not just one specific thing.
Yeah. And can you share a pivotal moment in your career that shaped your coaching philosophy?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that one more time?
Can you share a pivotal moment in your career that shaped your coaching philosophy?
I'll share a couple. So one came early on when it was about 2009. I was coaching for about a year, just kind of getting my feet wet of working with people. And that's when I was introduced to the world of hardstyle kettlebell training. And that's primarily the physical pursuit of what I work with myself and with my clients. And I learned this because we had actually a level 2 functional movement program that came to my gym where I was working at in Clifton Park, New York. And the gentleman that ran that was named Brett Jones, who is now the director of education with Strong First under Pavel Tatsulin's program. And at the time, he was a master instructor with the RKC system that Pavel Tatsulin brought over. So what the RKC was, if you don't know it, is a school of strength that focused on the one tool first, the kettlebell, and how to really master specific movements of strength and technique. It's gone on to more things with body weight training and barbell and other types of tools that you can use. But this was the first real introduction that I got into the world of kettlebell training. And why it was so powerful to me, Sushmitha, was, I came from a background with baseball where the details matter so much. Like if you step into the batter's box, just the little differences of how you balance your weight, where your elbow is when you're going into your swing, all those small little details can be the difference between striking out or hitting a home run. Okay. So I was really fascinated by diving into the details of mastering skills. And when I worked with Brett and I met with him, he taught me a lot in a short period of time about this system of strength. And I learned more about the certification and the program that they got into. And that was something I really wanted to pursue. And it was really one of the first things in my life that I pursued individually. 100%, I was just all in. Nobody else around me had any interest or really idea about this program. But something in me was like, this is something I need to dive into and I want to go into. And that's when I went and I met some of the most amazing people. Brett Jones became my teacher and coach for 14 years, one of my great friends. So that was one of the pivotal moments that really shifted my mindset into coaching, where it peeled another layer down of just getting deep into the work, not just skimming the surface. And then another one, which was most pivotal to what I do now, was during the time when the global pandemic happened in March of 2020. So at that time, I was working with an amazing team. We had a small studio in my hometown, Saratoga Springs here, and we were doing incredible. We were busting out of the seams. We were actually expanding our space. We were tripling our space and building it out in that time. But then when the lockdown happened, we were shut down in New York, my state here. We were shut down for 9 months. And really had to pivot and figure out a lot of different ways to still help our members while they couldn't come in to our studio. And we did some great things. We built an entire online system of training. We took kettlebells and brought them to the homes of our clients that were going to be home for a while so they could still get their training. So we had a good system that we were about to work on and implement. It worked for a short period of time, but then slowly started to see members weren't coming to the classes as much. They were kind of falling back into old habits. They were like not feeling good about themselves, and like everything was starting to really get to them. So while this time was happening, me and my team, we were calling our members, just going over, how are you doing? Just trying to stay in connection with everybody. How's your spirits doing? Can we help anymore? And one of the answers that I got that was common among a lot of them, and also was very interesting when I heard it because I wasn't expecting it, is they said, well, I feel like I don't know what I'm doing if you're not there. And I stepped back. I was like, that's a really interesting response. It's like, let me think about that a little bit more. And what I realized is that a lot of our members, when they were in front of us as coaches and we were telling them exactly what to do and what plan to follow, they did great. But as soon as we were removed from the equation and they didn't have a coach directly in front of them anymore, they felt like they didn't know what to do. So as much as we were trying to help people, we were also subconsciously enabling them at the same time. And what was interesting is I was talking to a lot of other friends who are personal trainers and coaches at this time in their own businesses, and they were falling down the same path that we were going in with their clients. So that's when I started to look a lot more on the mental side of success for people in health and fitness and how that applies with people getting into physical pursuits. And the information that I started to find was staggering. So in the US alone, there's over 750,000 personal trainers. There's 120,000 big box gyms, but still only 5% of people say they succeed long-term in their health and fitness goals, which means with all the information and all the availability of people out there that can help you, it's still a 95% fail rate of people actually achieving success in the long run of their lives. So as much as we've expanded in our knowledge in health and fitness and the information that's available, we still haven't shifted how many people are actually successful with it. So that's what was really the main shift for me in looking at how is the psychology and the mental performance side so vital and important to connecting with the physical pursuits with people's goals. And that's when I started to shift my entire program and how I work with people, of now diving just as much, even more so, into the mental side of their coaching as well as the physical side.
Yeah, that's very insightful. And how do you help busy professionals integrate strength practices into their hectic lives?
So the first start is always to meet somebody where they are. Okay. So I used to tell this story to people that I hired for the front desk at my old club, and I think it's relevant to this conversation here. So the gym that I managed for a long time, we had a team of 12 trainers. They were all absolutely incredible. We had a great system of education and building trainers into fantastic coaches. And when I would hire new front desk people and I would bring them in, and the first thing I would tell them is all the stats. It's like, this gym has been here for 30 years. We have over like 1,500 members. These people spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars a month on their coaching. We do rehab work. We've changed people's lives, all the great things that are happening inside of our walls. But then I would tell them, but the next person that walks in here has no idea about any of that and how impactful that can be. The first thing that they see is you. So I said, the best thing that you can do is smile and be energetic and enthusiastic about that next person coming in. Because if you greet that person with, a somber face, or they have a bad experience right off the bat, then they don't get to see all the other good stuff that possibly could happen. And that really kind of shifted a lot of their mindsets. Like, this is really important. The reason I bring it up is because I think a lot of times in my own coaching practice, after getting years and years of experience, I thought that I could kind of move it forward a little bit faster. Like, I had more experience and more knowledge, so I can get people into more advanced stuff more quickly because I had more experience. So how I work with people now, though, is realizing that everybody's starting from a specific spot. And the first thing I ask people, it's kind of a cliche ask, is what are your goals? Like, what are the goals that you have? It's a very easy answer. Everybody's probably been asked that before on a pursuit that they have. But then I dive a little bit deeper into it, and I hold on this a little bit more. So I ask two more questions right off the bat. Number one is, why is this important to you? And the second one is, how will your life be different by achieving this goal? And the reason I want to get into this first is because so many people, they have a goal, they want to lose some weight, or they want to gain some muscle, they want to get more clear in their mind or their vision. And then immediately they just go into action. Oh, I want to lose 20 pounds. So they just start going into work. If you don't actually understand why that is a goal and actually get deeper into the layers of it, then people fall back into old habits all the time. That's why the average person in America, they start and stop a new exercise and training program 4 times a year, which means they're good for 6 to 8 weeks. They fall back off for a month or two, and then they go right back on in this yo-yo cycle of success back and forth. And the reason behind it is because I think we're very poor at actually diving deep into the goals that we have and why they're important to us. And then after that, I start asking about what is their history before, not what they've done, but what are the times that you've struggled before, you've fallen off? What are the times where life starts getting in the way and it starts to try and derail you from your progress that you have? If you don't go into this and actually look at where the habits are, then you're eventually going to fall back into them. So what I do is I created a 4-pillar system of mastery that we talk about. It's recovery, discovery, creation, and mastery. Oftentimes we go right into the second phase, the discovery. It's what do we need to add into our life in order to get the goals that we want. But if you bypass that first phase, recovery, which is what do you need to let go of that is holding you back from achieving the goals that you want to achieve? And we don't talk about that as much because it's very uncomfortable. Nobody wants to admit that they have struggled in the past before. And often I think we just believe that now we're really motivated and our willpower is just going to drive us through and we're going to get there. But if you don't actually look at what are the things that have held you back before, it might be a mental block. It might be sometimes saying goodbye to habits or people that are in your life that aren't helping you in this process. And if you don't get to that piece first, then it doesn't matter how many things you add into your life, you're always going to fall back into what you've known before, specifically when times get tough, because times are always going to get tough. Okay, that's the reality of it. There's never a smooth path. There's always going to be obstacles that are going to pop up regardless of what level you're at, beginner, intermediate, or advanced. If you don't let go of the things that have held you back, it doesn't matter what you add.
Thank you so much, Michael, for sharing your incredible journey and insights with us today. I'm sure listeners have gained a lot of valuable knowledge and inspiration.
Thank you.
And for those who are tuning in, and remember that strength is not just about lifting weights, it's about lifting your life to new heights. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your friends. Until next time, keep pushing your limits and mastering your mind over matter. Thank you.